Oh, hey, look at this. It's the clean-shaven Tom King himself. Welcome back to the land of the beardless. You're looking good, my friend. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me on. You know, I love your show. I love your audience. I love the energy you bring. I've sucked up to you too much. I'm cutting myself off.
I
Not
appreciate
sucking
that.
up to you, Sal.
No,
That's
good.
it.
Yeah. No.
But anyways, it's a pleasure to be
suspicious.
here. Thank you for having me on. It's weird looking at myself beardless. My son is 16. We were just talking about this offline. I was teaching him how to shave. So because I didn't have a father growing up, or I didn't by the time I was 16, and so I had to learn myself, which was painful. Uh, and so I was not only teaching him how to shave, I was teaching myself how to teach someone how to shave because I had no idea at this. I had gone to it blind, and so in teaching him how to shave, I started demonstrating, and then the beard came off, and I was like, oh, I remember that face from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's go. I grew this beard literally in like Pakistan, Afghanistan, you know, to like that was kind of like the thing you did when you went overseas. You tried to grow a big beard.
Yeah.
And it had been on ever since. It wasn't a Mitch makes fun of me. It's not a real beard, it's like a wisp. But I had the wisp.
Yeah.
For so Mitch doesn't mock me for since for 20 years. So
I mean, there is a distinct difference. Like there is a straight up separation between bearded Tom King and babyface Tom King. I mean, it's just are we going to get more like youthful, optimistic stories out of this, or is this just a ruse?
Absolutely. If you know one thing about me, it's youthful and optimistic are the hearts of what I write.
Yeah, they're the basic tenets of a Tom King story. That's one of the things you know.
I was writing the most miserable world ever today. I can't even describe. It's coming up in Wonder Woman if she goes to this place, and it's just, it's terrible. It's in all minor keys, like dun dun. It's all drugged. So the beard has changed nothing.
That's fair. That's fair. Let me ask you this regarding the music cue that you just elicited. But do you listen to music when you write, or do you just kind of like go? Because I can't have any distractions. Like I'm just like I can't. I used to listen to music, but the lyrics got all messed up in my. I'd like write them, and I'm like, oh no.
I will listen to music when I write. I don't generally do it. I used to do it when I first started writing, so like the early Batmans and stuff. Because in our old house, also on Capitol Hill, but a little south of here, I didn't have an office. It was a 1-bedroom. We had 2 children, so we had one kid. Well, actually, no, it was 2 bedrooms. So we had one kid in the 1 bedroom, my little daughter in the hallway in a crib, and then basically in the TV room, I had a computer in the corner. And so when my wife was taking care of the kids, I put headphones in, and that became my office. You know, headphones become your office,
right?
Become your doors. So I used to have to write to writing just so I wouldn't hear my kids saying "dad, dad, dad," and that's why they need to go to therapy. But generally speaking, I don't write to music. Sometimes I will. It does keep you anything to keep you at your keyboard. I have a mix. It's literally called A Write because the A makes it go farther up in the.
Oh my god! Like in the phone book,
in the phone book, like AAA. And I've been building on it probably about 20 years now, and I just throw songs in there. They're generally speaking, I can't write. I know a lot of writers write to like ambient music or scores and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I can't write to that stuff. I have to write to music that has lyrics, songs I've heard a bajillion times. It's like majority kind. I'm not a music guy. I love music, but I'm not the kind of guy who can be like, man, I love this, you know, Nirvana's 3rd album, or you know. When I watched the Super Bowl yesterday, my child explained the whole metaphors of the halftime show to me. I was like, that's amazing. But I have listened. So it's like random songs I've collected over the last 20 years that make me write better.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so
we were talking about this recently, my team and I don't remember what book we were talking about of yours, but they were like, what's his process? And I was like, I don't fucking care. And I've never asked, but I thought, you know what the hell? I've got you. But like, do you have a process? And if
what is a process? I don't even know what the question is.
I know. Like, it's the question that everybody asks writers in interviews where it's like, what's your writing process? Like, what's your what gets you into the mode, and then how do you approach writing? And I find that I never care about the answer to that. And if I were to be asked that question, I would make up something because I really have no process. But like, do you have like a thing where you're like, some folk have to be in a coffee shop, or some folk have to be completely cut off from the world, or like they have to travel or take a walk in the nature and stuff. Or
Yeah, do those people have children? Do they have wives? Do they have deadlines? I write whenever I can write.
Yeah.
I have to walk my dog. I have to take my kid to get his braces off this morning. I have to have this podcast. I can't afford to like be so precious about when I write. I have to write when I can write because I'm on deadline. I think you might understand. I'm sure there are people who do podcasts where it's like, I need to get in a space, I need to edit, but you have to produce content. You have to come out the next day. And that's kind of what makes you a joy, is the fact that there's a little bit of vaudeville to it. There's a little bit, you end up stripping the facades away and revealing yourself and who you are. And you have to be honest with your audience, because if you're not honest, you can't produce, basically.
That's the basic tenet of what we do here. It's like why anyone watches, because they're like, well, at least he's not full of shit. And it's like, well, I can't argue with that. It might be terrible, but he can't show, but he could talk,
And that's where I think comics are such an honest and beautiful medium. That's why I think comic writers are why I admire so many comic creators, because it's a medium that doesn't let you to sort of rest on your laurels. You have to go. There's another deadline coming. There's another story.
Yeah.
You can't sort of sit with that and bounce it off and do this. Keith Giffen said it's vaudeville. I mean, that's 100%. He was 100% right. Like, Stan Lee's just shouting on the phone, how about a rhinoceros? And then, that's like,
yeah.
So yeah, my process is to get it done in order to have time to have dinner with my family.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Do you have ideas and write them on like your phone, or do you have like a Columbo-esque notepad that you keep in your trench coat at all times? Or like when ideas come to you, do you go like, because there's no way when it comes to me, just in terms of, I need to remember to take out the garbage, I have to write it down. Things have to just go into a note thing in my phone, where it's like anything that I plan on doing at any time within the next 30 seconds has to be written down. Is it the same for you, or is there kind of like a system you have in place when you have ideas and thoughts about like story or character?
No, and this is terrible writing advice. So if you're a young baby writer and you're watching this and you're like, I want to listen to how Tom does it, don't fricking do it my way. I said frickin', look how good I am. I'm evolving.
I know, yeah, that's very safe.
It's like the beard dropped off and I say fuck less. Oh fuck, I just said it. Jesus.
Ruined.
Yeah. Fuck.
3 now.
No, it's funny. Dan Slott and I were just talking about this, because he's the kind of guy who brings a notebook with him everywhere he can and writes in scraps. And like 20 years later, I don't write down shit. I don't believe in it. I am of the belief, and this is an incredibly stupid thing I'm about to say, and I apologize for it. I am of the belief that if I have an idea and I forget it, it wasn't worth remembering. So it's almost like my first editor is my memory, which is stupid, because I find that a lot of my best ideas and problem solvings come in that moment when I'm half asleep and I wake up to go to the bathroom, or my dog's making some noise or whatever. And I'm just like, what does Wonder Woman need to do in the next issue? Oh, there it is. And then I go back, and half the time I forget. I was like, oh, I totally solved this. I should have. No, I never write anything down. I do not keep a journal. I do not do anything. If it exists in my head, and if it's if
not good enough to retain,
if it's not good enough to retain, then it wasn't good enough to be on the page.
Wow,
is my general opinion. And again, you should not listen to that. That's terrible advice. Don't listen to a word I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think there is. I get that. I understand that impulse, because yeah, sometimes you just want that idea. If it's an idea that's good enough to stick and it really resonates with you, and you keep thinking about it and you come up with new, angles to approach it, then it's got legs. It's got some kind of like something, staying power. But if it's just like, what if this, but that.
Yeah. Also, I never want to be tied when I'm writing to my past self and to my past ideas. I mean, he's fine. He's a good writer, but like, if I'm at that keyboard, if I'm writing, I want that to be as good as I can make it, not me being sort of subservient to a past idea. Where it's like, I'd already figured this out. What did I get out of this? I want to be like into that idea in the moment, and think this is the best thing ever, as opposed to trying to sort of figure out something that I thought of days ago.
Right. Or years ago.
Makes any sense. Or years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I could have that's probably exactly, and every single writer I know doesn't do that. So listen to them. Listen to them and not to me. Take notes.
Right, exactly. Take notes. Exactly. Take notes, not here right now. How is Wonder Woman going for you right now? Because you are currently continuing on your in continuity, ongoing Big 3 series.
Yes. Trying to get as many issues as I can before somebody kicks me off. That's my philosophy on Big. It's going super well. I mean, it's mostly going well because I'm paired with Daniel Sampour, and he just makes everything look brilliant.
Incredible. No, it's beautiful stuff.
It's absolutely brilliant. He just makes it shine. He's the reason I'll keep staying on that book. I was just talking to him yesterday, just begging him. I was like, here's the plan for the next arc. Here's the plan for the next arc. You're going to be around for that, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, thank God. He also keeps me honest. Like, he's like that. He'll tell me if an idea sucks, which is nice because sometimes they do suck. And he'll be like, no, let's try this. And he's 100% always right. It's super fun. That's a very hard character to write.
Yeah.
It's a tough book when it's on my schedule. Like it is this week. I'm writing Wonder Woman. Most of the first 19 issues, I had this narrator who's the Sovereign, and he talks in this highfalutin voice, and he's always using these goddamn words that I have no idea what they mean. And so that's like hard because every panel I'm like, oh God, I gotta write this stupid fucking guy who talks. And he doesn't use I, he uses we, which is the hardest thing to write. Usually the copy editors, I usually leave 2 or 3 in and they catch me. And I'm like, God damn, I thought I got them all. But yeah, I mean, she's a joy. The joy of that book is that every issue is about how wonderful she is, to coin a phrase.
Yes.
And as long as I keep that as my North Star, then I'm happy with how that book is going. As long as it's about Diana and how awesome she is, and sort of, I think of every issue as I'm going to prove that this is an essential superhero. That's not something you think of when you do Batman and Superman. You don't have to prove they're essential. But Wonder Woman, for some reason, I do feel like there's some doubts that exist about her. And I was like, I want to show people why she's so awesome. So I just keep that as my North Star and keep going.
That's fair. There was a discussion. My team and I talked about the first volume of Wonder Woman on our big show. And there was some debate about the Sovereign's accent. I think that he does not have like a deep Southern accent, that it's more like a non-accent from like Northern Virginia. Can you confirm or deny that?
I think, he's got, I would say mid-Atlantic, kind of like old school.
Oh, you mean like a transatlantic?
Yeah, transatlantic. Sorry, that's what I was. Yeah, the transatlantic, that like, you know, the thing they used to teach MGM stars in the 30s, where they're not British or American. They're kind of between, so they talk kind of like this.
Yeah, like Kelsey Grammer or
yes, like Kelsey Grammer. He definitely pronounces his WHs with the 2 syllables instead of where, Quinn or where.
Excellent.
That's yes. I think he's like proper, but in a very old school proper way.
It's very fake. It's an affectation. You had to learn to talk like that.
Yes, he had to learn to talk. Well, his father, probably his parents talk like that. He's also in his 90s, so he's not like, you know, he's not dropping, you know, he doesn't ever use the word sus.
No.
Or rarely. Yeah.
Yeah, rarely are things mid.
Yeah, things aren't rarely mid. He's like, you know, I every once in a while he talks about his own Riz and everyone shudders a little bit. And,
naturally, yeah.
That's so. No, I think of it as I tend to when I do, you know, I read along and act. I read out loud the dialogue and pretend I'm the people underneath my voice. So if you ever see me writing on a train, you'll be highly disturbed and think I'm the mentally disturbed person, because I'll be there talking and doing. You know, I have a voice for Wonder Woman, and I have a voice because Wonder Woman doesn't speak. Her accent is, you know, like not American, right? And she speaks it, and so. So I have to do hers and sort of take out. She's a little bit like Data. She doesn't use contractions. She's sometimes a little too formal in her word choice, and sometimes a little too lax in her word choice, and she transposes words here and there. So that's a whole different challenge. But I do the accents when I write them.
That's awesome
for sure. Out loud. My kids and my dog mock me.
Your dog. When it comes to this Wonder Woman series, huge bombshells. I mean, like left and right. The first 2 volumes have all kinds of crazy shit in them. But
more
how
coming.
much-
Jesus, there's
yeah.
not I 18 comes out this week, and that's going to be a big thing because it's this huge epic fight, and then 19 has some big, blowing things up kind of issues. So yeah,
Nice.
there's this you can't stay steady in this book.
No.
I learned that directly from Scott Snyder on his Batman run. I came up watching Scott do his thing, and sort of him calling me every day about what, and he's like, his motto is like, just you got to keep him on the toes. You can't do monster of the week. You got to change. You got to pivot. You got to draw attention to the book and tell people it's important, because it is important and it deserves attention. So yes.
Yeah. It's funny talking to Scott. He is always espousing about how he's like, I could do like just your run of the mill, here's a Scarecrow story, but we have to go further. Like, he's got to swing for the fences. And I noticed that that's a quality that you also share, where it's like, if you're not going to give it everything, then your name probably isn't on it.
Yeah, no, why? I fought very hard to get in this industry. It was this was my life dream to be here. And every time I would read a comic and I saw a panel wasted or a book where you could tell someone put no effort into it, I just could not. It blows my mind to this day. I was like, you have the most sacred space in comics. Frank Miller made the best Batman story with 4 issues. So every time you have 4 issues, you didn't do what Frank did.
Yeah.
And Alan Moore could, in 8 pages, change the way all comics work. So what are you just writing this bullshit crap generic stuff? So yeah, I Scott and I are of the mind that swing for the fences, keep going, because we've talked about this before. People pay a lot of money for these comics. They're not cheap. They're $4 or $5.
Yeah.
And you want to give someone like an experience that just hits them, not just hits them, but gets them to talk to their friends and be like, fucking I hate Tom, or fucking I love Tom, or I can't wait to see what happens next. So yeah, and Wonder Woman's a great example of that. We went big, and that first trade is a huge hit.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to keep going big. None of them were written down beforehand, just as long as you know that.
Yeah, no, they were all fresh. They were all immediate.
They were all immediate. None of them.
Yep. You're walking your dog by the by the Washington Monument. You're like, what if a giant woman picked that up and just tried to smash someone with it? And it looks great. Sampour completely just crushes it with those sequences. And the things where you're like, that. Oh, I guess that's what that looks like. I guess I would never have imagined that.
I'm like, one of them picks up the Washington Monument and throws it, and she genuinely looks like she does that. That's an insane thing.
I know, it's pretty dope.
Daniel make real. I mean that it's a good demonstration of coming up with an idea, because Daniel had challenged me. He wanted to do an issue where Wonder Woman saves someone, a la the famous All-Star Superman suicide page.
Oh yeah.
And that was like a knot you have to untie. Like, how can she save someone? I'm like, does someone fall down a well? Is someone stabbed? Is someone like, and then all of you're like, you can't do a suicide again, but how does her just like, do you make it very challenging? And I remember I was like downstairs lifting some weights, and I was like, what if it's, like saving someone is not actually saving them, but like just like spending time. It's like John Cena doing all the work he does with these kids who are sick.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a great idea. Now, any normal person would have stopped lifting weights and written it down. But I was like, we'll figure it out. And then, like, 2 days later, I sat down. I was like, what was that idea I had? What was it? And it came back to, I was like, okay, yeah, good. The John Cena thing.
See?
So yeah,
it was a good idea.
I John Cena'd her. So yeah, it's an exact demonstration of that's my process. Just hope and pray, really.
Yeah. That issue was a big stand-out. I mean, there's so many individual issues where it's like, oh my god, that issue caught, and people really responded to it. That particular issue with Jack was beautiful. The Steve Trevor passing was awesome. The infusing Lizzie with life sequence was unbelievable. And now like iconic. Really cool moments. Do you think of these moments like where you're like, here's a key moment? Do I tailor the story around getting that moment in there, or do these moments emerge from telling just genuinely trying to tell a story?
I mean, both things are true and both things aren't true. I mean, it depends, and that's a terrible answer. I wish I could be more specific. I mean, I guess I could talk to those actual ideas. I mean, with Lizzie, we had all sorts of back and forth with the edit, and we with Josh Williamson, our mutual friend, Josh and I but we have a weekly call. We talk for an hour about comics, and it's incredibly helpful to me for the rest of the week, and just sort of sets me up for everything I do. And Josh and I went back and forth sort of all the possibilities, what it could be. Mostly I talked to Josh. I know comics really, really well. But Josh knows them even better than I do. So he'll be like, that idea has been done. That place is that place. So
he's so quick to do that too. Cause he's like, he's been there and he's done it. And he like probably sold that comic book cause he used to work at a comic shop. He's like, yeah, no, they did that already.
Also, they're like I know some things he doesn't know. I probably know indies a little better maybe than Josh, although he's gonna yell at me and say he doesn't. And I probably know, but I have like gaps. Like I stopped reading between 96 and 04.
Right.
And Josh will always make fun of me that I just don't know stuff in that period that's like very famous. Mm-hmm. Like little things that happen like in Stormwatch and series, or like he was yelling at me that I didn't read Hitman. I was like, yeah, I've read some of it. But
oh my god,
I've read it. He made me read it. I've read it now. It's very good. It's incredible.
So you've read Hitman, okay? Because like for one thing, yes, Josh will find a way to work Hitman into the discussion. We literally talked the other day, and we were talking about something that had nothing to do with Hitman, and Hitman came up as like a way to explain something else. And he must be very excited about the omnibus that came out recently. But
although omnibuses are so hard to read. God,
I know, but like, how else am I going to read my Marvel DC crossovers now?
Well, yeah, at least it's published. Yeah, that's how I feel at 5 Year Later Legion, one of my favorite runs of all time. It's only been published in omnibus.
Really?
I take it out and I crush my genitalia trying to read this fucking thing.
But I feel like Hitman's kind of a book that's up your alley. I mean, I may be incorrectly assuming this, and it might be just because, you know, Tom King writes stories about sad people, but like Ennis books like Preacher and Hitman and, you know, even Constantine feels like kind of the stuff up your alley.
No, I worship Ennis. I think he's great. I've met him twice in my life, maybe 3 times. But the first 2, he was at the bar, and I was too intimidated to talk to him. I couldn't even go up to him. The second time, I was just on an elevator, and he walked in, and I was like, "I'm Tom King. I think you're the best person ever. I think you're." And he's like, "Oh my god, this is stupid. Is this person going to shoot me?"
Yeah.
So yes, no, yeah, I and his war. You know, to add to it, his war stories are also absolutely amazing, and his humor stuff. If you haven't read Ennis, is just over the top fucking Vertigo humor stuff. I grew up on that.
The Pro?
Yeah, the Pro, and then he did a bunch of like these kind of like, you know, like British
there's a book
military
called
guys.
Dicks. Oh yeah, there's
I love Ennis's stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's a much more, in terms of his superhero writing, much more cynical writer than I am.
Yes.
Maybe you've heard of this Boys series that
you know, that does ring a bell.
Yeah.
Little known indie series. Speaking of indie series, yes, The Boys.
But I still I can see his point of view on all of it, for sure.
Sure. Oh yeah, of course. No, he makes a compelling argument.
A little more idealistic, yeah.
His
and to me he is the writer of Constantine. I think everyone else is a step back. And I say that very nicely, and I realize he's not even. I mean, obviously, Constantine was created by Alan Moore, but even Alan Moore, I think, is a step behind Garth. There's something about Garth's attitude, about the way he writes, that just infects that character with I don't give a fuck about anything because I care too much about everything. That no one has captured in the way he captured.
You know, you mentioned Miller, and we talked about Ennis for what feels like half an hour, but
sorry.
No, it's my fault. But I wanted
to. Yes, I do like Hitman. I like Preacher better, though. I was in an argument over whether it was
me too.
Or Hitman. Yeah, no, I would put Preacher, and I just reread the first trade of Preacher, and it's still real good.
And it's still great. Yeah.
Ugh.
I got that signed once at Baltimore Comic-Con of all places, and going back a couple of years. I don't know if you've been to Baltimore quite a few times. Do you remember the naked
I'm
guy
a Baltimore regular. Was he do you have like an Eden leaf over his,
or like a loincloth? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I do remember this. Yes.
Yeah. I was stuck in a line with him to get my Preacher Volume 1 signed from Ennis, which, by the way, the line was like 4 people deep. It was just, but unfortunately, one of them was the loincloth guy. And for those of you folks at home who might want a picture painted, imagine a man in his mid-60s in a loincloth made of leather and flip-flops. That is his cosplay for Baltimore Comic-Con. And he wears it every year. At least he did until, maybe recently. I don't know if he's still alive, but I don't know how
Poor
they got away with it.
loincloth man. Pour one out for loincloth man.
Pour whatever loincloth man. Loincloth man is the Comic-Con equivalent of up where we are in New Jersey, New York area. We go to the New York Ren Fair in Tuxedo, New York, and there is a wizard who is at the show. Hat, stars on it, robe, the whole nine. He's not affiliated with the show. He emerges from the woods, walks around the entire Renaissance Fair for the day, and then goes back into the woods. He's been doing this for like 30, 40 years. I think he also died. So yeah, he's like the loincloth man, but for
I feel like they're probably the same guy. This is a Clark Kent Superman situation.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's like just takes off the costume. Or it's Frank Thorne. That's a deep comic book joke. Did you get that one?
I think so. Yeah.
Frank Thorne, who's this Red Sonja artist for many years, dressed
up he dressed as a wizard
to go to all the cons, and then drew a comic book with him dressed as based on himself and surrounding himself with a lot of naked ladies.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I think it is Frank Thorne.
Most famously, he would do a performance piece with Wendy Penny, who was like his cosplay Red Sonja, and Wendy Penny, of course, famously went on to create ElfQuest and one of the great indie comic creators of all time. But she started out as a cosplayer who did a show with Frank Thorne.
Interesting.
This has been Tom's silly stuff in the history of comics. If you go to YouTube and put Frank Thorne Wizard in, you will find an old like 1970s Comic-Con performance where he just does his wizard thing with Wendy Penny, and it's bizarre.
Does he do magic? I guess he's a wizard.
It's like a stage show where it's very 70s. We're all on acid kind of thing.
Okay.
It's like, oh my God, I found a strobe light. Let's do that. It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
No offense to him. He was a pretty artist.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit. Black Canary, Best of the Best. It is currently, as of the taping of this show, is still going on. It is going to 6 issues, which wraps up in April, I believe. How much fun has that been working with Ryan Sook and doing this book? You've been trying to get this book off the ground for what, like a decade?
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 or 5 years now. I think we're getting to 5. I wrote it consecutively all together for Ryan during the pandemic, so that was some time ago. And so Ryan got the whole 6 issues, which were 6 rounds, and he's been drawing it for all these years. And we were blessed that DC was like, we're like, when do you want this due? And like, when he finishes. And so Ryan just kept there are some artists that they miss deadlines, and you don't have no idea what's going on. Ryan was just consistently drawing and turning in pages. It was just he was just making a masterpiece and taking his time, which God bless.
Oh yeah,
work with someone who's making a masterpiece. Say yes. And so that's what he did, and now it's finally out. Every page is goddamn glorious.
Yep.
If you're reading this, you're like, goddamn, Tom, there are so many words on here. It's so full of words. And I can't tell you, I cut half the words out. It is twice as many words on the drafts. All I do is remove, because I wrote this. I don't know. I was in a wordy ass mood when I wrote that thing. I think I was swinging back from my Batman where nobody says anything at all for 7 issues. And I was like, they're just going to say everything. So yes, I love it. It's sometimes in your career you get to work on wonderful things that you sort of know are going to stand the test of time. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's a big hit. People love it, but like I just know this is going to be one of those trades I'm going to have for the rest of my life. That I'm going to be like, here's the best story I could write given this thing. Just like with Mr. Miracle, just like with Strange Adventures or Supergirl. And so just to be in the middle of writing, being one of those is an absolute joy. And I always have to remember what it's like to sort of ride that roller coaster. And I'm on one right now with Ryan Sook. So
yeah,
very happy with it.
It's a gorgeous book. It's so fun, fantastic action and character work. And yeah, I'm just I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. And it speaks to all your strengths. I'm a big fan of that series. Gorgeous looking stuff. Gorgeous in its like brutality. You know, there's so many amazing like moments of just seeing Dinah like just taking just these massive like bits of punishment, whether it's from her mother or from Lady Shiva, and it's just like, damn.
And we're only halfway through. It does not get less intense as we get more rounds.
Yeah, it's a book that don't pull its punches. That's one of those.
It does not. Yeah, good. That's well done. In issue 4, Dinah starts winning for the first time, and she is a nasty fighter when she's pulling ahead. She beats the crap out. I mean, Shiva threw her ring man into the stairs, and she's looking for some revenge. And it gets, as we go forward, it gets bloodier. The stakes get higher. The combatants get madder and madder at each other until they just hate each other so much. And then as the background, you of course find more and more about sort of this mother-daughter relationship that's compelling, this motivation, this need to stay up. For people who don't know this, the setup is her mother has cancer, is dying of cancer, and Dinah has made a deal with Vandal Savage. She's supposed to lose this match. Lady Shiva's a better fighter than her. If she can lose it in 6, then he'll make the money and she'll make the money, because she's not supposed to last 1 round. So she has to go 6 rounds and then take a dive and lose the match. So he can put all his money on. She goes down in the 6th round. So she has to last for 6 and then lose, which is hard for her on 2 levels, because her mother is like, if you fucking lose, I'll hate you forever.
Yep.
And also she's getting the shit beat out of her and should give up before she gets to 6. So that's what it is, and that's how it goes. And if you think you know the ending, then you know more than I did writing it, because I honestly did not know in the end if she would what would happen at the end. I mean, obviously she probably doesn't die. Who knows? But the ending became just the natural momentum of the book, and I was like, that's exactly what it has to be. So yeah.
It's interesting. We've talked before about making sure you're very much your own worst critic, where you're like, am I doing my best work? Is this the year where I'm doing my best work?
Oh my God, yes. Every fucking night I go to sleep.
But it seems like you're very like proud of how Best the Best and Wonder Woman are both going. If you can look back at some of the books of your career, are there anywhere you're like, this one's pretty great? Like, they all have their merits, but like, I kind of really nailed that one, especially. Is there one that stands out above the rest outside of the ones you're working on now?
Yeah, I thought you would ask me the opposite question, which is like, which one?
What failed? Where did you completely just take a dive?
I will tell you. I mean, speaking of Cy Spurrier writing Constantine, when I tried to write Constantine, I just fell flat on my face. I was like, oh my God, I'm such a fan of this character, and I cannot make him do anything. I'm totally failing at this. Because I don't know the Britishisms, I don't have the attitude, I'm not doing this right. Mm-hmm. Where I really got, there are particular issues which I think I was like, that works. Usually they're number 5s. My old editor Jamie Rich used to make fun of me that I'm really good at writing issue 5s. Huh. But Human Target number 5 stands out to me, as it's an issue where the whole thing takes place. It's in the Human Target's head as he's passing the salt across the table.
Yeah,
and it's sort of, I read that and I was like, oh, this reads to me like when I was a kid and I read an Alan Moore comic. Like, it just feels like, it's something different, something new, it's something cool.
Yeah.
And all of Human Target sort of stands out to me as something beautiful. And then certain issues, there's like Vision number 10 where they're stuck inside the house and they have the prayer.
Oh God. What a good series.
Sheriff of Babylon number 5 again, where this is where we do the bottle episode where they just sort of talk.
Yeah.
I can see her and brag about myself a lot. It'll go super well. Mr. Miracle number 6, which is them. It's Scott and Barda, and we did a scroll video game where they're just going through they're conquering the New Gods planet, and as they do, they're having this conversation about rearranging their house, and it turns out that she's announcing she's pregnant. And Mitch just drew it so perfectly.
Yeah.
So yeah, those kind of things. I took nothing in the past 5 years, so really I've just fallen off.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The deluxe edition for Mr. Miracle dropped recently.
Holy shit! And it is beautiful. My God,
it's gorgeous.
It is so good looking. Do I? Oh my God, I have one back here.
Nice.
I'm going. I'm promoting my shit. Look at this thing. Look at this goddamn thing.
Oh.
So Mitch did this because Mitch is very clever. So it has these bars at the front.
Yep.
And so it looks like he's trapped, and he's all sad about being trapped because that's what it's about. And then you take off the bars, and you see that the bars were hiding the fact that he's actually breaking out of the trap, and he's actually smiling. So that what you're looking at is not him being trapped, but him escaping the trap.
Nice.
As you open the book.
Right.
How
that's
awesome
cool.
Is that? That's Mitch Garrett's storytelling. Yeah, it's cool. Look at this thing. It's beautiful.
I know. No, it's
half of it is extras. You get like my scripts and.
I was gonna say, what are some of the fun extras you get? Because these deluxe editions are usually chock full of fun bonus material.
You get my scripts. You get what I call, I don't know if you call it director's cut, maybe a director's throwaway, which I did with the recent Supergirl, where in Mr. Miracle I wrote an issue again, issue 4, and it got thrown out because it wasn't very good. And then I rewrote the issue, and I included the first one, so you can read my first take on issue 4 and be like, "Wow, Tom, you really fucking missed."
Yeah.
It also includes, Mitch's sketches, obviously, my scripts. It has a whole. I love this. So every issue of it has a poster that comes out.
Oh, cool!
Like a little Bob Dylan kind of music poster.
Oh, that's fun.
You get to put up, included in every comic. It is so goddamn beautiful. And it has which I enjoy. Every issue of Mr. Miracle starts and ends with a quote from Jack Kirby's Mr. Miracle, the corresponding issue. So issue 1 opens up with sort of it's the same captions that Kirby used to open 1 and close 1, and then so then they show you in here my page with those, and then they show you what Kirby did with the same dialogue, and so you can kind of see how I took his words and warped them and not warped them, but put them in a different context to mean something else.
Yeah.
So yeah. It is gorgeous, and I have a few extra copies. So I should bring them to Tom's and give them.
Very cool. I'm gonna have to grab another copy because I know I have like a hardcover, but I don't have the big deluxe.
Dude, if I see you the next con, I'll bring you one. You have fun for free. I'll tell you, it's yours.
I always feel bad whenever I get anything from you guys when I swing by at the table and it's like, hey, and I'm like, don't let me cut the line. But then again, I get pelted with markers if I don't. So
cut the line. We don't like pelting you with markers. Those are our best markers. You're costing us markers by not cutting the line.
I know, it's true.
You're a busy man at a con. We know. No offense to anyone who's in line.
No. I try not to take up too much time. Are there any comics that you just love to reread where you're like, well, I got a minute, pull out an old book of yours that you not that you've written, something that you just love to look back on?
Yes, I have a whole shelf. This is my shelf of my favorite comics.
That
is behind me. What have I got here? Things I love to read. I got Alan Moore's top 10. I have Under Siege, the Avengers story. I read that over and over again.
Oh wow, really? That's cool.
Love it. Watchmen, obviously. Some JMS, Brave and the Bold. I love that run. Animal Man by Grant Morrison. What else is it? Mouse, obviously. Box Office Poison. I have a lot of the greatest. I like to reread those because those are big those kids. The greatest DC team ups and that kind of shit.
Oh yeah, that's right. We've talked about the greatest. Yeah, about that one. Yeah.
So yeah, those. But they're books. Yeah, there are writers I go to over and over again. I go to Bendis's Marvel stuff from the mid-aughts. I just think it's so good. I that Daredevil, his Daredevil run. I read that a lot. And Power stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Mignola Hellboy stuff, like Conqueror Worm, I read over and over again. I just think it's just
fun.
So brilliant.
Yeah.
What else do I go to? Yeah, I don't know. Those are my big ones, I guess. I read. Obviously the Frank Miller. I think I probably read DKR and Year One once a year. Both of those.
Yeah.
I think they're endlessly brilliant. I don't know if Frank. I was just looking the other day at that famous, Captain America page from Born Again, where he's like, I only believe in the dream. I was like, Frank, what is how? What?
Yeah.
You told the best Captain America story in 4 panels that anyone's ever told. You had 4 panels. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Frank, you did it in 4 fucking panels.
That's true. It's
and
funny.
I know Frank. It makes no sense. He's just a normal human being. I talk to him. He seems cool. We eat. He eats with a fork and a knife. Doesn't make any sense that this person could produce such genius. But he did. He does.
Yeah. Yeah. I was on a podcast recently where I was charged with like explaining how comics work basically, and I was like asked to come up with something, and I just
I want to know. Do you know how the comics work?
I mean, I dabble, but I picked just DKR, where I was like, this is why Frank Miller's a master storyteller, and I made the exact same parallel. I was like, yeah, DKR, here's how he tells his whole story, blah blah blah, and I immediately went to Born Again and the sequence where the Avengers show up after like Matt and Nuke are just slugging it out. And so I was like, well, actually hold that thought. And I just pulled those up and I'm like, oh, hang on, let's look at that for a second. Because look at how Matt is like pitted against these gods and how they're all portrayed. You can't see any of their faces. And it's just so cool.
Well, you get Mazzucchelli, you just can't,
Oh my God, I know.
Some people draw perfect and he draws perfect.
You are a avid art collector of original comic art. Do you have any original pages from Frank or from DKR?
No,
I assume most of the DKR pages are gone, but if they're owned by art collectors, at some point those pages get back into circulation.
They do. DKR pages are like 100,000 a pop now, and I enjoy being married to my wife. She's a wonderful human. I don't think it's a secret. David Mandel has a good Frank Miller collection. He's the showrunner of Veep, a great guy.
Yeah, he's a great writer from Seinfeld, and
writer from Seinfeld. So he has a lot of them, and he let a few go because he bought a big prop from Heritage. So a few of them have been on the market recently, and they go nuts. No, I mean, the only what Frank pages. I have one page from Batman, from All-Star Batman and Robin.
That's cool. Yeah, have we talked about that? It's not the one. Oh no, that's
the worst page. The one with the Robin head. Yeah, that's that's
right.
my Frank. But I do have. I mean, if you just look right back there, I have my DKR #1 signed that looks over my shoulder.
Oh, that's cool.
And I have a picture of me and Frank up here.
Is it from the Midtown Comic signing, or is it?
This is from Baltimore. That's me. That's me and Wheezy and Walt and Frank. Those are my three comic book heroes all in one picture with me. And I look very chunky, but I ignore myself in the picture, and I just look at the awesomeness.
Is that your Columbo shirt?
And I'm wearing a Superman shirt of some sort.
Okay, Superman shirt. All right.
Yeah. So Frank keeps a look at me. I own some top 10 art. So I have some Alan Moore art. I have one page from my favorite Alan Moore story, which is Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
Really? You have a page from Whatever Happened? That's awesome.
I haven't told you. That's like my one good comic book art story that I have.
No, let's hear it.
I have bought so much art that I has hit. The market is always going up, and I buy the thing that goes down. I'm an expert at it. But there was this one time, there was a dealer. I was at a convention. I think it was San Diego, actually, of all conventions. And there was a dealer there who had a bunch of Kurt Swan pages priced at like $500 a pop. And I was, just flipping through them. They're just kind of generic, cool, sort of Swanderson. They call it because Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson drew together, called Swanderson. That's an OA term. And so I'm flipping through these, and in the midst of them, there it is. I was like, that's clear, because obviously Kurt Swan drew the George Perez and Kurt Swan drew Whatever Happened to Man Tomorrow.
Yep.
And Perez drew the first one. Swan kind of drew the second one with Perez's help. And there it is in the middle of these just random Kurt Swan pages. There's a page from Whatever Happened to the Man Tomorrow, and I was like, oh my god. And I was like, I immediately I was like, can I buy this? Like, yes. You want to like bargain? I was like, no, don't have to bargain. I'll take it.
Nope.
500 is good. No problem.
Yeah.
I put it over in cash and buy. It was like, it was the one time I've ever gotten a bargain where sort of the dealer did not know what he had.
Yeah.
And I got that wonderful page. No, that happened. There's a famous time that happened in New York Comic Con. Have you heard of the Ass Man story? Has anyone told
The
you?
Ass Man story.
Josh
No.
was there for Ass Man.
Oh,
New York Comic Con one year. We're all in this is an artist alley when it was the old artist alley, which was kind of like separated a little bit and had light instead of underneath in the darkness. And we're all sitting there, and there's a dealer who was selling pages, and Frank Quietly pages, pencils, not inks, because Frank inks, I think, over blue line. That means if you ink over blue line, that means you do pencils, you scan your pages, and then you print them again and you ink over.
Yeah.
So a bunch of penciled Frank Quietly pages, and they were cool, but they were kind of from more obscure sort of things, and they weren't very expensive. They were literally like $100 a pop, which is amazing now to think any Frank Quietly page.
I know, right?
$100 a pop. But at that time, you were like, why do I want this sort of obscure Vertigo book or whatever it was? And there were a bunch of pages in there that were Ass Man pages. And everyone's like, what is Ass Man? Like, what even was that book? And then it kind of people sort of put this together that Ass Man was All-Star Superman.
Oh my God.
And the dealer did not know that, because they were pages that didn't have Superman on them. They were so the dealer probably sold the Superman pages.
Yep.
So they were just they looked very generic. They looked like very kind of science, that book, science fiction or weird. But they were $100 a pop. Frank Quietly All-Star Superman pages, and it just went down the row of creators. Like, he's got All-Star Superman pages for $100 a pop. And it just it spread like a wild, and we all rushed him. And this guy's like, why do these people love Ass Man so much?
Right.
They just cannot get enough of Ass Man.
Oh my God.
And we made an agreement amongst ourselves that we could all only have one page, so someone didn't come up and just buy all.
And just buy the whole lot.
So that's how I got my All-Star Superman page.
That's awesome. Ass Man
that I have. It's an Ass Man page.
You know what's funny? When you mentioned that Josh was involved, I knew that Josh had an original Frank Quietly page, but he never told me about how he acquired it. And
I was there. I was there for the Ass Man.
What page did you get?
Just like Kramer.
Yeah.
It's a page of it's from the Jimmy Olsen issue where he's doing all the crazy adventures, and he's there's like a baby sun that they're growing in the university, and he kind of goes and explores it, and the baby sun he falls into the baby sun, like kind of like falling into a river. It's that page. And it's
cool.
The pencils are just so delicate, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Apropos of Frank Quietly, you've worked with a incredible array of some of the top artistic talent in the industry. Are there any artists that you? Yeah, the best of the best. Are there any artists that you haven't yet worked with that you would love to acquire in your like so many pages from clueless art dealers?
I mean, yes. There are dozens and dozens, but I mean the artists I most want to work with, the artists I'd love to do more with Bill Keith. I'd love to do more with Smallwood. I'd love to do more with Mitch. So like the top of my list are people I've already sort of done. But yeah. I mean, obviously I want to work with the legends. I want to work with Sienkiewicz. I mean, I want to work with Frank Miller. You know who's number one on my list, and this is not a shocker. But it's a friend of mine, and I've never written for him, and its name is Jim Lee.
Oh, yeah.
And I know Jim, like we're friends. We text each other, and I've written one, and we've known each other for 10 years. We've been working at the same company, and I've written one page for him in all that time. So yeah, that's the big dream, to do something for Jim. I just think Jim's been the best artist in comics for almost 40 years now, which is. That's going to go down in legend. People don't even understand. I mean, obviously he's the top of the game. He's sort of the new Stan Lee. So I'm not trying to underestimate him, but I still think his legend will only grow as the years pass.
That's fair. Well, you could have when Assbat was going to be a thing.
I could have. That was close.
It was really close.
I work with. Is that an Art Adams Wolverine behind you? That's what.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Art is also a friend of mine. I would love to do anything with Art Adams.
Art Adams,
Yeah.
such a I am jumping to talking about how great Art Adams is as a person because I've only met Jim Lee twice. He's been a lovely person, but it's been in a very quick kind of like, hi, and that's the end of the conversation. So I know he's very, he knows all the greetings. He knows how to say hello. He knows how to say goodbye. But when it comes to Art Adams, like
That's all the greetings.
he knows exactly what to say and when to say it. But when it comes to Art Adams, dude is so sweet and so, I mean, like Simonson, where it's like just amazing person to run into at a convention. They're always like full of amazing stories and have like such endless positivity, such like really genuine, like sweet people. Adams is dope. Just a great guy.
Art Adams is also fucking hilarious. If you're, we had my family at Thanksgiving with them once, just by coincidence.
Wow.
It was like at a con over Thanksgiving, and a bunch of people had Thanksgiving together. And he is funny, man. He had my kids just laughing hysterically. He is a true classic. And I read his Alpha Flight X-Men issues.
Yes.
My father was a high school teacher and went on strike in some LAUSD thing when I was a kid and took me on the fucking picket line. Oh my God, you could not have been more boring for a 9-year-old child. And all I had to read was the Alpha Flight X-Men Art Adams issues, and I must have read them 30 times in a row, just over and over again. I could almost recite them from memory.
Yeah.
So, and I've told him that story probably 40 times. And he now can recite the story from memory as well.
There we go. I love that. It's so funny how like when you're a kid growing up, especially pre-internet, when it comes to comics, you only have access to what amount of money you have, which as a kid is nothing. And the inventory that you can expand on, which if your parents aren't in the industry, they don't like love comics. It's like it took so much effort to convince my parents to go to a comic book store at all, much less to buy something that wasn't a comic book. In that time, I was like, to get a box, like a long box. I was like, I need to store these things, and they were like, why?
That's right.
Like,
your
first
parents,
of all,
my parents,
right? Like, they were just like, what do you mean store them? Like, didn't you throw them away? And I'm like, well, but throw them away. Here's magazine says that this thing's gonna be
plastic bag from the grocery store. They can pile them in there.
Yes, yeah. Where they're like a bag and board. What? For the longest time, I only had bags, no boards. And then eventually, I got boards, and they're like, "What do you do? Good Lord, there's a lot of money. Why don't you just get a wine box and cut it up and call it quits?" But yeah. But you read those books like over and over and over again.
Those are the ones that you read over and over again. Yeah, that stick with you, and the storytelling sticks with you forever. 100%. Yeah, when I was a kid, I thought of the world in terms of comics. Like I was, like if I was like, if I mow my grandfather's lawn, that's 3 comics. Like that was how I thought. If I was like, if I buy a GI Joe is $3. That's 2 comics plus tax. Or if like an annual, I looked at the world, like in Fight Club where you see all the price tags. I just saw comics that I could exchange for things. My parents were of the opinion that they would never buy me a comic book ever. And then
really,
and when birthdays come up, I saw them as like, okay, this is the one time my dad will get me like a $50 gift certificate to Graffiti Comics in Culver City, and I was like, that's all I want is that $50.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. The worst day of my mom's life is going into a comic book store and just having to talk to the retailer.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, I think to this day, my brother and I don't get along. He's 50 years old now. It's been many years, but it goes back to when my brother got a car. I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than me. When he got a car, one of his things was my mom was like, "You have to take him to the comic book store because I'm never fucking going again." And my brother, who is, he has his own problems, but like he was like, no, and I'd be like, Dylan, you signed the contract.
Did you guys have?
I only said 4, so we're only 12. Yeah, no, my mother like wrote out a contract. You will take Tom, or probably Tommy. You will take Tommy to the comic store, and he's like, what the fucking contract? I already got the car.
Yeah, exactly. I'm out of here.
I'm like, this is
you could drive me to the
violation.
Yeah. I would convince my parents because it was on like a block of stores. I would just like be like, you can drop me off at the bottom of the street and I'll walk to the comic book store and then, come back. I'll go someplace you want me to go to and meet you there. Ugh.
My comic shop was next to an old school barbershop. This is in Culver City, Los Angeles. It's no longer there. It turned into like 3 different shops, and now it's finally, I think, gone.
What was
But
it called?
it was on Overland Boulevard. It was called Graffiti Comics when I first came to it. Then it was called Comics Inc. in my teenage years. And then I think it changed again after that. A guy named Steve owned it. I don't know Steve. Can't remember Steve's last name. And it was next to it was in a strip mall, as everything in LA is, a very sketchy strip mall right next to Culver City High School. And where, most of the kids just come and kind of hang out at the liquor store to ask people to buy them alcohol.
Yep.
But next to the mall was an old timey like barber shop where like
like a men's kind of store, like
a men's kind of store, yeah, with a straight razor.
Yes,
it's like this is the 90s, so people were trying to be like the 50s, that kind of thing. And I convinced my mother. I was like, that's the one place I'm gonna get my hair done. Mom, it's just a coincidence it's next to the comic book shop. I was like, you can get a good deal there. I was like, all right, that's the one. So she had to drive me to a haircut, right? Like, so it's the same distance. It's like Supercuts or that place. So it drove me there. And I remember, he's like, do you want to get a shave? And I'm like 13. I'm like, yeah, let's shave it. And he fucking nicked me. Boom. I'm bleeding. And I'm like, I'm bleeding for my comics. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And then you're like, well, I mean, we're all in here. I might as well just wander into this. I mean, Mom, did you notice there's a comic book store? I had no idea. Yeah. Yeah, we all think we're slick back then.
Yeah, well, that was
amazing.
And how much I've changed in all these years since, and I'm still trying to make comics just like I did back then.
Yeah, you're like, honey, can we go to get my haircut? She's like, who are you kidding?
Oh my god, this weekend my kids are like, I'm so bored. What are we gonna do? I was like, who wants to go to the comic book store?
Now, are they in any way like, yeah, okay, or are they like grown? Dad?
No, they're excited. We go to this store called Third Eye out here in
Third Eye, wow,
in Annapolis, Maryland. And if people don't know, it's another guy named Steve. Well, I just got Steve guy. A brilliant owner named Steve runs it, and he has like a block of sort of pop culture stores. So there's a record store, there's a Dungeons and Dragons store, and there's a gaming store, and a comic book store, and it's so I can take them there. My older kid could go look at records, and my younger kids can. And he has like, they love Archies or some Archie crap, and so yeah, to them it's like going to like a nerd mall. So it's perfectly acceptable.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, no, Josh was hyping up Third Eye when he got back from there recently. He was like, "Oh my god, Third Eye was an amazing store." And I've still never been, but I have been to their booth at Baltimore Comic-Con many times.
It's great. You got to come out. Yeah, that's a quality store. We also have Phantom Comics in DC, but that's like it's like a city comic book shop. It's very cool and indie and hip and hype.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes if I'm going to a comic store, I want to be like, oh man, I want to go see if they have like the John Byrne X-Men run. That's like,
dude. Yeah, no, I every comic books, every city I go to, I hit up a comic book store. Like everywhere, I'm like, if I'm traveling for any reason,
you nerd.
I do this. Here's how bad it is, and we'll wrap it up. But just this past San Diego Comic-Con, Josh and I went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine at the AMC at like outside the San Diego Comic-Con.
Pretty good, huh? I like that Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, it was all right. It was cool. Folks, if I can recommend it, if you can go with a comic book industry professional, it's worth it because you get to see Gambit come on screen and then Josh go, what? What a genuine experience that was. But when the movie's over and there's a comic book store next to the theater, and we both just drifted over. Like there was no conversation. There was no like, do you feel like going to this thing? We're just like in the comic book store and then just separated. Like not like we went because we had to take an Uber together, but like just went to the comic book store. Like Josh and I just shopped, and it was just funny to see like this is what nerds do. You just go in. We're like, well, anyway, I'll see you later. I got to go over to the Spider-Man section. He's like, okay, have fun over there. Anyway, I'm going to be over here at the the Superman section.
But you must have this thing because we're not really famous people. We know we've seen famous people from afar, but we're not real. But when we're in a comic book store,
get a little famous.
People will recognize us.
I asked Josh to say, I was like, are you worried people are going to recognize you? He goes, nah.
Oh, every time I can go in, and my kids will give me away. I'll be like, let's go to a comic book store, and they'll be like, do you know he wrote this and he wrote that? And they'd be like,
I love that.
Who are you? Are you James Tynion? I was like, no. They're like, what?
You're like, yeah.
I don't care about it. Yeah, and I'm always, I don't know, I get horribly embarrassed. I'm not very good at being a celebrity. I'm I'm always nervous when I go into comic book stores. I went into one the other day, and it was in LA, and I went in, I bought some things, and the guy's like, I know who you are.
That is not helpful. That did not make this a better experience for me. Thank you.
I was like, I wasn't trying to hide it. This is my face. I don't have,
Yeah.
Like, well, thank you.
Yeah, now it's even more visible than ever.
And then I was like, oh, well, I regret buying all this embarrassing material.
Yeah. Oh, no, I shouldn't have put all my hentai here. What?
Yeah. No, it was not hentai. When I buy embarrassing material, it's going to be
it's over the internet.
Yeah,
like a self-respecting person.
It's gonna be like, wow, you bought a ton of Marvel 2-in-1s. What are you doing? Like, shut up. I just want to read Thing teamed up with somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love Marvel 2-in-1. That's great. Yeah, it happens. It doesn't happen as often as you might think, but sometimes, because I'm a face. One time I went to a comic book store and they were watching back issues. Like, they're watching my show at the store.
That's pretty amazing.
And I was like Grandpa Simpson at the brothel. I was like, And then I came back afterwards. I'm like, all right, I don't want to be on at the same time, talk to my wife and be like, what do you think about this Spider-Man book? And she's like, don't try to make them hear you, okay, you idiot. But yeah.
I had a meeting with a movie star about movie star stuff in LA, and I was like, damn it, he's a movie star. What am I gonna do? And we had the meeting at the hotel, and above the hotel was a big Kite Man Hell Yeah.
Yeah.
Statue.
Oh my God.
Yes. Like a bolt, like as big as anything. And he's like, so what do you do? And I was like, I did that.
Kite Man didn't used to say hell yeah, but he does now. And it's
I don't do much, but that's one little thing.
That's me. Yeah.
Mr. Movie Star. So yeah,
that's fun. That's a great moment. Is like when what you needed is for one person to go like, oh my God, are you Tom King? Completely bypassing the movie star, being like, I love Sheriff of Babylon.
This happened in a Container Store. God bless, the guy was incredibly nice. But like, I was going by and he totally fanboyed out to and I was like looking for like something to. It was like the Container Store. Were you looking?
Yeah, it's container. You're looking for a vessel. Yeah.
Yes, I was looking for a vessel to put like a comic book art in. I was like looking for something that was just the right size, and I was like, "Oh yeah, nice to meet you." And then the whole rest of the time, the guy kind of followed me or like looked at me, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I feel like I have to not like trip over myself and make just like, I'm gonna be in a TikTok video of there's Tom King. And what the fuck is he trying out all these containers for?
Who's he putting in there?
I don't know. Yeah. What a bizarre. Well, we're not really famous, but we get to see what it's like every once in a while.
Yeah, Comic-Con is the time when you get to cosplay as a famous person. It's fun.
Yes, yeah. People come up and they're like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And you're like, "Do you know what a nerd I am? Do you want me to tell you a story about getting cut at a barber for comics? You don't want a picture of me."
Exactly. No, yeah. That's the only time I get any recognition is in comic book stores and at Comic-Con, and even then, it's embarrassingly low. Like
I recognize you. You're very famous. People love you. You're beloved.
I think you are too, man. You got to get more. You got to get on the. Now that you got the clean shaven look, you got to get on the social medias. You got to do the TikToks. Drop your hot takes.
I'm withdrawing from social media. It's a sad. After being a social media addict for 15 years, I'm getting out of the game. So
that's fair. No, it's
sad for me, but the time has come.
It's for the best, Yeah.
I got like my 100th death threat, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's enough.
It's very
ring the gong. You made it.
Yeah, the death threats would put me in yeah. I'd go full box turtle at that point.
It's like, it's just not worth it for me anymore.
No. Ring the bell. Fuck that. Well, Tom, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you coming on the show. And besides Best of the Best, and I hear there's something about like a lantern show, but I don't think we have to. We ran out of time, unfortunately. We can't talk anything about that.
Yes, Best of the Best. Wonder Woman 19 is the big end of our first arc. 18 is out this year, then 19, and then we're gonna have Guillaume March is coming on for a few issues to do. We're gonna do a murder mystery with Wonder Woman, a team up Wonder Woman, Batman solving like True Detective, Batman, Wonder Woman solving a murder mystery. Mm-hmm. And after that, Daniel and I are going to launch our big new sort of second story which why not just tell people? So it's called Mouse Man Knows. So it's about Mouse Man, and it is freaky as fuck. It's one of the, I'm writing. It is, goddamn, it's weird and wonderful, and again, really just like a big game changing story. Oh, and 19 has, so I have a very long story in my head of what I want to tell. As we're sort of getting to the end of the Sovereign, sort of his story ends. But as his story ends, you start to see the opening of what this entire huge arc is going to be. 19's your sort of first glimpse into the future of what's coming.
Ooh, cool.
I have to pitch my books every once in a while.
Absolutely. No, if not here, when?
If not here. And the first trade is out now. So the first 2 trades are out now, so you can go and grab those off the shelf. And Helen of Windhorn comes out in a few weeks, so please.
Yes, you just finished Helen Windhorn. What a beautiful and amazing book.
It's the best drawn book of the year.
Grab Helen Windhorn, my wife's favorite book of the year. And by the way, if you are still not sold on Wonder Woman, there is a whole issue that is just a Columbo episode by way of Detective Chimp. Shameless is what I would call it. Just unabashedly, like, if you want to write a Columbo, I know Peter Falk isn't here anymore, but they're making Matlock shows without Matlock. They're making Murder, She Wrote. If you want to make a Columbo show, I'm sure someone will open up their coffers for you. But like,
for one weekend, I was been hired to write a movie where a Bugs Bunny meets The Rock. It's a long story. It did not become a movie. And for one weekend, the guys who were making that movie were like, "What do you love?" I was like, "I love Columbo." And they're like, "We think we can get the rights. Do you want to pitch Columbo?" And I was like, "Yes." And that was like a Friday. On Monday, they called me and said we couldn't get him. I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, for 1 week, I was like, "I'm gonna write Columbo." I'm hoping, just like I got that gig because someone read my my Elmer Fudd Batman book. So hopefully, someone reads my
your
Detective Chimp as Columbo and realizes that I can write Columbo.
Yeah. Now here's my question:
that's my dream.
With the passing of Peter Falk, who would you have play Columbo now?
Oh, I have someone in mind.
Do you really?
I have.
Then we can't even talk about it because
I'm not telling you. No, I'm ready to pitch it. It is. I have. I'm doing the Hollywood thing now, so I can.
Yeah, you can be like,
I can actually do it.
I can do it. I can make this happen.
Yeah, this is not. It's not out of reach. I mean, it's way out of reach, but it's not like impossible.
It's not impossible. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I can't go to the moon, but you could make a Columbo revival.
You guys shoot your shot, man. Let's put it out in the universe.
Agree. Listen,
put it out in the.
You are 100% right. I got to write a Terminator story.
That's what I'm saying.
I have absolutely no right doing that, but I got to do it. You should get your Columbo. I mean, like, I'd watch it. That's one. I just actually caught an episode. We have Pluto TV, which is just like fake free TV, and there's a Columbo channel, and we jumped in the middle of an episode or the beginning of an episode, and I was so captivated by it that I closed it, opened up Amazon, pulled up the episode, and was like, we're watching from the beginning. And it was one of those Columbo movies.
On Peacock for free, where you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I got it. And it was the episode that was directed by Steven Spielberg.
The first one. That's the pilot.
First one. Yeah, the pilot.
The first one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
He's pretty good. Steven Spielberg's like 23. That fucking guy. Pretty good.
Well, it looked good. It's well shot.
Going somewhere.
Yeah. Never did it again. I was like, man, really? You got to come back to you got to remember your roots, man. But I will say,
got a few
the ending,
that like Jaws.
Yeah. The ending was a little weak.
It's not the best. It's not the best murder twist at the ending. Yeah. It's the best part of that episode is the opening credit sequence, which is somehow just absolutely amazing, with just a guy on a typewriter and sort of the camera screening in. It's really well done. You're like, oh wow, Steven Spielberg. Yeah, he knows it's brilliant. Yeah,
this kid is going places. It's like Martha's Vineyard.
But I mean, come on, Jack Cassidy doing the bad guy. It's fucking great.
Yeah, no, I mean, great acting, and but like you can still Falk's still figuring it out. He's still looking for his instrument.
The problem with that, there's a lot of Columbos that are like this, where you're like, if Columbo could trace phone calls, like call the phone company and figure out where the phone calls are coming from, a lot of these mysteries fall apart. And it's like when you watch Severance. I don't know. Severance is a wonderful show, but you can always be like, if they had cameras anywhere in this building,
then that's over.
Then none of this works.
Yeah, then the mystery's gone.
So you have to kind of ignore that with Columbo.
I was sad to find out, because I think Kate Mulgrew is amazing. She's Mrs. Columbo.
She is Mrs. Columbo, yes.
But apparently they wanted to change the name of the show, Mrs. Columbo, later, So as a result, they had to work in the show that she and he divorced.
Oh my God.
I know.
Well, she's also much younger than Peter Falk, and
yes,
and I believe it is very much implied in Mrs. Columbo came quite a few years after Columbo was on the air.
right.
For people who this is so stupid stuff.
It's either this or Predator, so we might as well talk about Columbo.
Yeah, I'll talk about Predator too. But that issue was so much fun to write with Bruno on art. Oh my God.
Yeah,
absolutely. He was the one who told me. He's like, I want to do Detective Chimp.
And you're like, I got an idea for you.
Well, I mean, the thing is, all right, so people don't know, Columbo starts off with a murder, and that's like the first 20 minutes of the show is you see the murder happen. And then and then the next 40 minutes of the show is you see Columbo solve the murder that you've already seen. That's the kind of trick of it, is he's solving a murder that you already know.
Yeah.
And so that Dan DiDio, who used to be head of DC Comics, and I had this long-running argument because he's a huge Columbo fan of how many pages it would take to tell that story, because you would have to show the murder, which would take up, if you were doing a 24-page comic, just showing the murder would take up like 4 to 5 pages. 3, 4. And so then you're left with so few pages that tell the actual story, and to hit, there's like basically Columbo's like a Seinfeld episode. There's just certain beats that you hit every time, like Kramer's doing this and there's over. And when I got the brief, I was like, oh wait, I already have a murder, and you've already seen the murder, which was the murder of Steve Trevor. So so it was like, oh yes, I can skip those first 4 to 5 pages and just and start the Columbo in media res, so to speak. So then I could tell the story that way. So that made it work. The fact that I'd already murdered someone, which is just very nice. And fortunately, I did not write any of that idea down and remembered it the next day.
Now here's my question: did you call DiDio and go like, "Yo, I did it. You'll be getting the issue in the mail"?
I did not, and I wonder if he noticed. I pulled
it off.
I hope he noticed that I pulled it off.
Anyway, that's enough. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.